Another thing that I think is very interesting with your arrival in Boston, and you've spoken about this. I'm going to steal this topic from Michael Cooper's podcast, and ask you to go more in depth. You spoke on Dennis Johnson and his impact on you, specifically on the defensive end. Obviously, DJ is one
Hmm.
of the most beloved Celtics of all time, and he goes to the
Yeah.
assistant coaching bench when you get
Hmm.
there. You talked about how he kind of taught you how to count dribbles on the defensive end and
Yeah.
anticipate. Can you walk
You
us?
know
Can
what?
you remember that
Yeah.
conversation and like what exactly
Yeah.
was he trying to teach you?
Well, it's funny that a great player like Michael Cooper, when I spoke with him, had no clue I was talking about. You would think that that was a norm, but it really wasn't. Dennis Johnson was such a great on the ball defender. I mean, he would, you watch the old film of him, he would pick the ball off people so easily. And I always wonder why. I would ask him, like, that again, back then, it was a little bit of hand checking. You could
Mm-hmm.
kind of guide the guy we wanted to if you were strong enough. He was strong. I remember him, because again, when I got there, it was the year he retired. So I got number one. I got some heat early. You can't replace Dennis Johnson. Like who's this young guy from Jacksonville we don't know about trying to take Dennis Johnson's spot? And DJ deflected a lot of that attention to himself. Like, hey, I'm here to mentor him. He's not taking my spot. I retired. I'm on the bench. So I will always pick his brain between him and Robert Parrish. Those two guys were just such a wealth of information on the court, off the court, how to be professional, how to dress for the games. But with Dennis, so I would watch a lot of film. Like I said, I was a historian of basketball, and I was always watching Celtic Lakers games all the time. We all did. Jelani on CBS, Tommy Heinsohn. Um, so I said, DJ, like, how do you pick guys' pockets all the time? Like, you're not the quickest. You got long arms. You're a physical guard, 6'4", big guard. He goes, well, I count dribbles. I go, what do you mean count dribbles? He goes, yeah, like there's a method of taking the ball off somebody's body if you know how to count dribbles. And he went into this whole explanation, and he went on the court and showed me. He goes, listen, guys get into a rhythmic pattern when they're dribbling. They're comfortable or they're at duress. Like, but when they're in duress, they always go back to their comfort zone pattern. So you watch them when they're not under duress. If they do 1-2 dribble change, 1-2 dribble change, whatever it is what they did. It might be one check, skip, whatever it is. So they say watch them in the first 5 to 7 minutes of the game
Hmm.
and put a little token pressure on them, but not too much where they feel they're comfortable dribbling. What they feel like comfortable dribbling. Once you figure out their pattern, start counting their dribbles of when they do it. So if they do 1-2 between the legs, 1-2 behind the back, now you know when to attack the ball. Because once the ball leaves their hand, it's a free ball. They can't make the ball come up. You steal the ball when it leaves their hand, hits the floor, not when it's in their hand. So he goes, that's how you count dribbles. You'll know their pattern based on when the ball leaves their hand and hit the floor. So I started doing that a couple of times. Hey, 1-2, boom, 1-2, 3, boom, and it worked. Like I would get steals on the ball all from guys I never thought I could take the ball from because they're so outstanding handlers. But what you do is you let them get into their comfort zone, and then you put heat on them. And once you put heat on them, they go right to it. That's their comfort because they're used to doing that. And all of a sudden, you know exactly what they're going to do. So it sounds more difficult or simplistic than I'm saying,
No,
but it really happens.
sounds perfect to
Not
me.
every now not everybody you could get.
Yeah.
Isaiah Thomas's, the John Bagleys,
I was going to ask
guys
you
that
about him.
hurt.
I was going to ask you about him. Yeah.
Yeah. There's certain guys that they switch up on you real quick and have you looking real crazy out there. But most of the guys that you can get after a little bit as a point guard, um, they did have those rhythm dribbles where you can count and get a pattern to know when you can attack the ball with it leaves their hand because they were so used to doing it during the course of the game.
Was John Stockton a rhythm dribbler?
John Stockton was a rhythm dribbler, but he was really good because he was a physical guard to be so small.
Mm-hmm.
Hmm.
Like he was strong, he had big hands. Yeah, oh yeah, he did it all. Guys like Derek Harper was strong. It was hard to get him,
Mm-hmm.
but a lot of the guys were like that were like trying to be real quick. That's the guys who get rhythm dribbles. The power guards. And I'm not calling John Stockton a power guard,
Mm-hmm.
but he was.
But he
He's John
played big.
Stockton. Like you, yeah, he played big. You couldn't get closer enough to him because he had enough hands. We call it hand-to-hand warfare.
Mm-hmm.
Like in the 90s, you had to win the hand-to-hand warfare. Whoever got the hands on you first won. And John Stockton would get his hands on you first.
Mm-hmm.
So you could never get to the ball. You know, veteran guys, Derek Harper, Tim Hardaway, you know, guys like that. You know, Kevin Johnson. Those guys knew how to play the hand. Yeah, they knew how to do the hand-to-hand combat quicker. Some of the guys who just thought they could just beat you because they were more talented or had handles, you could maybe get into a little bit. So it was you had to be very selective in doing that because you don't want to be left and crossover at half court, and all of a sudden, you know, you got the guys looking at you like, dude, just stay in front. Just stay in front.
I feel like back then too, there was only like a certain amount of patterns. The patterns changed as the game evolved.
Yes.
Because now they got hesitation, cross, right? But back then, it's like with the hand check, it's like 1, 2, turn. You know what I mean? Step back, invite the pressure, cross, go this way. Now they like
the head
1, 2, in and out. Hesitation behind the back, you know. Yeah.
Well, you can also carry. You can take 5 steps now.
Facts.
Well, yeah. I mean, it's crazy because, like you said, Jelani, that the hand checking helped because you can guide the person a little bit. What makes guys turn their back. Like the two guys who hated to be pressured all the time was Magic and Isaiah because they were just like they wanted free reign, and you know they were high turnover guys because they had the ball in their hands all the time. But it's hard to pressure those guys because Magic was 6'9". He would just back me down the whole time and turn his back. Yes, and back me down. Isaiah was just, I mean, we talk about Kyrie and Steph Curry and Jamal Crawford. Isaiah Thomas handles was unreal.
I was going to ask that.
Unreal.
Probably. So you said most underrated handles, and it's disrespectful for him not to be mentioned with those guys that you just did.
I agree.
Yeah, it should be mentioned because again, the freedom of play now is a lot different than it was in the 90s. The comparison I do the most comparison is football with wide receivers. The freedom of to be able to run your route and to be able to get 1,000 yards in the 80s and 90s is a lot different to get 1,000 yards now. And now that Jerry Rice and you know Tyreek Rice, you know, like Tyreek Hill, like those guys are talented, but I mean. The freedom of
movement.
Who do you want to hit you? Ronnie Lott or this other guy? Like those guys were running through you. The physicality of the play. And again, I'm not that guy like, oh, you know, these guys can play in our era. Sure they could. Great players can play in any era. I'm not that guy that say these guys now can't play in our era. Great players adjust. Great players know how to adjust their game to be great, no matter 80s, 90s, 2000s. So, but again, with the freedom of movement now, there's more things you can do with the ball that you couldn't do in the 90s because you could put your hands on somebody.
Right.